Welcome everybody to our May 2022 meeting for abutters of the Massachusetts Department of Public Health's upcoming Shattuck Hospital to be located at 88 East Newton Street. I think we all know the drill by now. We all pretty much know each other. This is by my count our sixth meeting. So Asya, I'll just turn it right over to you to kick it off.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I do believe that I know most of you, but for those who don't know me, I'm Asya Rosenthal. I am a Deputy Chief of Staff at the Executive Office of Health and Human Services, working very closely with our partner agencies on the implementation of this project. And we really just want to start by acknowledging thank you for being here, taking the time out of your incredibly busy lives, joining us here this evening for some very important updates and conversations. Next slide, please. Two main objectives. Really, we want to go through the corrections van parking and a brief construction update and update on our alternate parking. We've seen this before, but our ultimate goal is to build a trusting, respectful, and transparent relationship. I know it's been quite a journey of working through this, and just the time that you've given us, we're incredibly grateful for, and I hope will contribute to a better working relationship. So let's just dive right into our parking discussion. I think that's top of mind for everyone here. And I have my colleagues on who from City Point Partners and DCAM who can speak to some more details, but we really have been diligently working to address some of the concerns and earn back some of the trust that we have lost by this back and forth of where the spaces are going to be. And after our last meeting, and I think a really, I would say, productive discussion, we have been able to regroup and come back with this final proposal, which is to reduce the 10 spaces in the back to 7 and replace those 3 spaces with green space. And let's just pause on that for a second, because there will be a slide that will show what that green space could potentially look like up in the air. So there would be 7 van spaces in the back. And I do just want to highlight, you see those 2 vans that are kind of pulling out near the blood bank. Those would be 2 pull through spaces. So I know noise is a top concern for you as neighbors to the new facility. So, that would be 2 spaces right there who would be able to pull right through without the backup safety noises that are necessary by our regulations. If you move now to the front of the facility, I just want to flag, people are going to ask, like, where are those vans going? So as we had mentioned in previous meetings, that space in the front cannot handle the load of those large vans that are going to be parking back there on the side by the loading dock. But we have been able to accommodate space for, we had mentioned some of those like SUV type law enforcement vehicles. So those we've been able to shift around our operations at the hospital and identify spaces for law enforcement vehicles in the front within the hospital property. And we are continuing discussions with the City of Boston and with our partners with the Fuller of where the other critical program spaces that are required somewhere in the front of the facility, where those are going to go. We don't have that operational plan yet, but just letting you know that we're working on that. And that's where those 3 additional spaces have come from. So that's really most of what I would like to say. Joe, anything that I'm missing? I don't know if Joe's on mute, but anything else from the team before I'm sure we'll go.
Sorry about that, Asya. I apologize.
No worries. Hi.
I was on mute and I couldn't find my cursor. Sometimes
I couldn't log in, so we're in this together.
Well, I'm glad you did, because I know that you've worked really hard on this. I mean, basically, you summed it up very well. We went back to, the whole team went back and looked at every different option, and I know that David and I had a parallel conversation. We can talk about that as well, but to look at different options to try to reproduce green space. The obviously operationally, the DOC and the agency, has a program and needs to make sure that it's going to be sufficient for the investment in the building. So we're very strong about trying to keep the 10 spaces. And it came down to the vans being a different animal than perhaps some others, and then relocating some program space from the front. As you alluded to, the structural restrictions on what can happen out front, and the vans can't go there. So this, try and little things like try to do the pull through spaces, bringing back that wall just a little bit so we could have at least 2 of the spaces pull through. I think it's a step in the right direction, really trying to accommodate and understand people's needs. And the 3.5 spaces, the 3 spaces that are there, and whatever else additional is picked up can be green space, which again is just an overture to try to be good and understand and do the best we can.
Absolutely. And if we don't mind just moving to the next slide briefly, just to show, again, this is what the green space could look like. It's a rendering. We want to just put something down on paper so you could see how much the 3 spaces would actually, take up. That is something I know, we've heard loud and clear. You want to be involved in the shape of your neighborhood, the decisions that are being made in your neighborhood. So we would want to engage with you on what that space would really look like, but just spatially, and a concept is on the screen right there. So I've done quite enough talking. I know folks really this is an opportunity to hear from the community. So David, I think, we can jump into questions instead of going through the whole presentation, unless you.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. And if people can put their hands up who want to speak, and Cinda, I see your hand up.
Sure.
Asia, can you just frame this up and give a greater context? Can we recap a conversation you and I had earlier today, which was just helpful to understanding this factually?
Sure.
We've always talked about 10 quote unquote vans as being the type of vehicles that the Department of Corrections would be driving and would be sort of needing to park. And so if I'm understanding this correctly, based on our conversation, what the change here that has been able to happen, because in point of fact, not all of the vehicles that the Department of Corrections uses to bring prisoner patients to the facility and to transport them back are in fact vans. Some of them are smaller vehicles, SUVs, that are able to park in that courtyard area on the front of East Newton Street because they're light enough. Exactly. And so the representation that the Department of Corrections has made continues to be that they need 10 dedicated spaces within the property line of the facility. Now, we can, as residents, we can agree or disagree with that, but that's the representation the Department of Corrections continues to make. But because not all 10 space, because not the vehicle mix is not entirely vans, some of it can be accommodated in the courtyard area off East Newton Street, correct?
That's exactly right.
That's just helpful factually, I think, to understanding.
That's exactly right. Yep. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I think that's really important for people to understand that it's the 10 spaces here. And I do just want to.
And what's driving the 7 spaces in back is the representation that there needs to be at least the traffic mix requires at least 7 spaces for vans. Right. Yeah, that's the logic.
That is part of the logic. And the other part is, I just want to make this group aware. We took a very hard look at the courtyard and we're like, okay, can we reduce some of the green space? Can we move some of these spots around? We were like playing Tetris of how can we fit even more there. And the number that we've been able to identify to dedicate to the law enforcement vehicles is 3 out there in the front. That's another reason of that 7-to-3 ratio. I think if we could fit more there, we would have, but we can't.
And in addition, Asia, the grading, it's not flat. We're looking at a 2D representation, but it's not flat. There's height here, and this also includes handicap accessibility in this path to get to the front door. So there's some things that are there also by design of the site and the way the site works, in addition to the fact that there's a utility installation below this plaza. It's not a slab on grade. There's an actual basement under there, which restricts the load, which Asia and Joe mentioned.
Okay. All right. I think Cinda had her hand up first.
Cinda, go ahead.
Asia, quick, where did you say the other 3 vans were going?
Sorry, so it wouldn't be 3 other vans going to a different location. So if we can get that mouse to the front courtyard, there's going to be 3 dedicated spaces for the SUV sizes. we were never necessarily going to have 10 vans at all times, but we do need 10 dedicated parking spots of a mixture of vans and SUV vehicles. So it's going to be the 7 and only vans there in the back, and then the SUVs would go in the front.
Okay, so that you're saying the 3 would be within the property on site, right?
3 of the SUV sizes, exactly.
Okay, I do have a statement. I mean, I do have some information that I worked on, and I don't know whether this would be the time to present it or not, David. What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what, limit yourself to 2 minutes for this first round, and then because Angela and some other people have questions or comments, and then we can come back. But just
David, I disagree with what you're saying. Cindy spent so much time on this. I think she should be allowed as much time as possible.
Again, I don't want to limit you, Cindy, and go ahead and start. I don't want to. You'll get your time regardless. I just want to make sure that everybody has a chance to comment.
Well, I'm flexible, David.
Go ahead, Cindy.
Okay. I just want to repeat what first of all, I think we do not want any of those vans behind our properties. Okay. And I just want to repeat what I stated at the February 15th, 2022 abutters meeting, that Frank Doyle, working with the City of Boston Transportation Department, got a commitment for 8 prison transport vans parking spaces on East Newton Street. I'd like to ask a question or two, and then after your answers, I'd like to make just a few comments followed by a request. I want to address this question to DCAM, to Mass Department of Public Health, and to anyone else connected with the Shattuck Hospital. Did anyone representing Boston University Dental School, Medical Campus, an administrator, or anyone else connected in any way to BU request from you to not designate any parking spaces on East Newton Street for the Department of Correction prison transport vans?
No.
Okay, did BU ask any of you not to put any parking spaces for the vans on the side of the loading dock ramp facing the dental building?
Not that I'm aware of.
But you're not sure.
Well, you're asking me.
I mean, you
Nobody-
said you're not aware of it, but it doesn't, but that's not, you're speaking for yourself then.
Yeah,
right?
well, nobody, I mean, I'm leading the project, Cinder. No one's asked me not to put anything there, so I'm not sure who else they would address that to, but I can't comment that someone didn't talk to someone, but there was never anything requested of me from a third party either, saying, BU asked me to tell you. So I'm not aware of any requests by anyone to not use spaces on East Newton Street or not use anything on the loading docks. And
Okay, now you know that much discussion has occurred pertaining to the detrimental impact of these proposed transport prison vans parking spaces behind our houses. And the state and the Shattuck Hospital are very familiar with our opposition to this proposal. I spent time reviewing part of the 5 abutter meetings, parts of them, because I was so taken aback by the information presented at the February 15th, 2022 meeting. On April 20th of 2021, and this is, I've done this as briefly as I could. The first meeting, there was with those 10 parking spaces behind our houses, there was opposition from the abutters right down the line. Some of them aren't here tonight, and I can assure you there is still opposition from abutters who are not here tonight. Okay, then that was made loud and clear. On June 23rd, 2021, this is the second meeting, parking for transport vans on East Newton Street. Frank, working with the department, Department of Transportation, got 5 future parking spaces designated for the vans on the street. The 5 vans off-site, and I can only, at this time, will tell you, it went up to 8 by August 29th meeting. Frank went on to clarify, and I state, I investigated with the Department of Corrections in the county houses of corrections how immediate is on site. What does that mean? Because I know some people mentioned last time there are garages or parking lots around the neighborhood. They all affirmed, and he's talking about the county correction officer representatives, as well as the DOC, that they had to have them immediately adjacent to. They could not go off-site other than adjacency, which is why we went to East Newton Street. This is Frank, why we went to East Newton Street. We're not representing other garages or parking lots. We just can't use them. Rick Pavino added, so that is our current direction and current process and solution at this point. August 31st, 2021, we were informed Frank Doyle, working with the City of Boston Transportation Department, had secured 8, this is an additional 8 parking spots on East Newton Street. There was no pushback from any department when this was announced. Still, a discussion around the proposed 5 spaces behind her houses was discussed, but we also had expressed we did not want them. There was a discussion around, well, what were the additional vans needed? Were there additional vans required? And because of COVID, Frank said that, there was, because of COVID, and I guess the hospital facilities were not available. He stated that he was working with operational strategies with the Department of Correction and HOC, which I guess is the House of Correction, that aren't fully developed yet. DOC agencies working very closely with it. Frank said he realized it sounded wishy-washy at that point in terms of where would be the placement of additional vans, but that was all that he could say at this point. Never was there a word about DOC finding on-street parking unacceptable. There was supposed to have been a meeting happening in November, and I believe that this meeting never took place because there was an issue with rescheduling. February 15th, 2022, abutters were presented with the information that the state went back to their original plan, 10 spaces, taking away all the green space. The state reneged on the future establishment of 8 prison transport van spaces on East Newton Street. Information provided by statements from DOC was that East Newton Street was unsuitable, vandalism, unlawful parking in vans, only snow issues, among other issues. I was taken aback and shocked by this information, and I am sure some other abutters had a similar reaction. The group asked that someone from the Department of Corrections be represented at the next meeting. April 20th, 2022. This is the 5th meeting. Robert Higgins, Deputy Commissioner, Prison Division, Department of Corrections, stated the same reasons that were stated previously, the parking illegally in the doctor office, in the DOC's spots on East Newton, if they were designated as such, vandalism, snow issues, no video surveillance. This was pushed back. These comments were pushed back, and I hope you don't mind me mentioning your name, George, but the president of the Worcester Square Association thought those reasons were pretty lame. Okay. Let me just see here. Then what happened that Meg Langley on April 22nd, 2022, from City Partners, reached out to David Mergadishian, CC'd a copy to Joe Nolan, asking David if he felt uncomfortable in the email having a follow-up conversation with Joe Nolan. David did speak with Joe Nolan on May 5th. The first part of the email, as written from David, said, from our conversation, it sounds like they are planning to propose fewer spots, 7, and exploring with the city on-street parking options for the other 3. Well, that was what was said. I was stunned to read about the proposed parking referred to on the street of East Newton, considering what was stated by DOC that they were unsuitable that these parking spaces were unsuitable for street parking. And I just want to, I'm almost done, just another minute. I just want to go back to the statement made by Frank.
And I'm so sorry. Can I just jump in really quickly for the record, since we're on recording, the spots on the street will not be for law enforcement vehicles. It'll be for other program operations of the hospital, not for DOC vans, not for DOC SUVs. That's what we're talking about. They would be in the courtyard on the hospital property. We are in conversation with the city of Boston on other operations for the hospital, nothing to do with law enforcement. Please continue.
Asia, that is not what Frank talked about at the August 31st meeting and at the
Absolutely. I'm sorry, please continue. I just wanted to make that clarification. You're just last.
No, but that is not true.
Let's have one people talking at a time here. Cindy, why don't you wrap up?
We have, excuse me, Joe, you're not going to be living with those 7 vans behind your house, okay?
I don't live next to that property. No, you do.
That's exactly right. I
Go
do.
ahead, Cindy, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, David. I am going back to the statement, and I don't appreciate being set to wrap up, Joe. I really don't. I don't know who you are, and I just don't appreciate it.
You, Cindy, I'll say my part after you're done. You just reference a conversation I had with Dave.
Okay,
Go
and then
ahead.
so I'm going back to the fact that those vans, according to what Frank had said, had been established that they could be parked on East Newton Street. That's right. So what I did was, I went out Sunday and took a look at East Newton Street, and it's a very wide street. It can accommodate. I've taken the buses on East Newton Street, and which other big lumbering trucks have come down, had enough space to get past the bus, even with other parking spaces parked on the other side of East Newton Street. So here's what I discovered in my walk. There are, on the side of Shattuck, you have 18 parking meters. On the other side, where the mental health building is, there are 25 parking meters. You have a total of 43 metered parking spaces on East Newton Street. And there's 4 handicap spaces, and there are 2 spaces that certainly have not been designated one way or the other. And I'm suggesting that you take your 7 vans that you want to put behind our building and you put them on East Newton Street. It's immediately adjacent to the property. And Joe, let me just say this to you. I certainly was surprised to hear that you wanted me to wrap up, but I want to tell you that I am certainly did not mean, no, I am a little bit disturbed by your reaction because you're new to the project and we've been dealing with this for over a year. So no offense, hopefully.
Sorry, I think Joe was telling me to stop interrupting you, Cinda. His comment was to me.
No, he did tell me to wrap up.
Cinda, I've moderated a lot of these meetings and I apologize. I didn't mean for you to wrap up, but we've gone on for a long time and we want to have everybody have a chance to discuss. You obviously did a lot of work.
I certainly did. And I've done a lot of work around this.
And I've got, 40 years of working on projects like this. So I understand the problems of abutters. But anyway, I'll just sum up that I don't know what the expectation was, and I can't speak for before we were here. I just know what the team's been doing since January, trying to find a resolution. And the position, correct me if I'm wrong, of the DOC is that their program requires the 10 vehicles, and we're trying to reduce it and get some green space. They own the property, they can build what they want on it, but they obviously have to live with the abutters long term. So they're trying to find a compromise. But I appreciate all the hard work you've done here, Cinda. And if you have it in writing and you want to submit it in, I will just say that my conversation with Dave Majarian was just to talk to him and say, Dave, what were you thinking? What could be done? Is there a possibility now he thought maybe we could do an extra spot. If we could get one more spot and have it be 4 spaces of green space, this team would have done it, and the reality is that this is a project that is being constructed, and it has to be resolved. And I don't know what you're. I mean, they're pretty clear from the meetings I've been in that The vans need to be, the vans and all vehicles that are public safety vehicles need to be on property. Now, that maybe, I wasn't, a year ago, that might not have been the case. Maybe there was efforts to do otherwise.
Joe, I think that's, and Angela and Maria, I see your hands and I'll call on you in just a second. Joe, and all of you, I think that's just exactly what we're struggling with. And I think this is implicit in what Cinda just laid out in her chronology of things that were said to us across the course of 4 or 5 previous meetings, which is we were given to understand by Frank that it was possible to place the vans on East Newton Street. And it was our understanding and expectation that Frank was making this representation based on all relevant agencies of the state being in alignment on that. And so to have you guys come to us in February and now blindside us, telling us suddenly that the Department of Corrections is no longer willing to have the vans on the street and therefore they have to be within the property line. And now the task is simply to, you know, to try to squeeze them in somewhere within the property line. That's why I think a lot of us are feeling blindsided, because we were given to understand for nearly a year that parking on East Newton Street would be a solution for at least half the spaces. And it's very difficult for us to understand why that representation was made across the course of multiple meetings, multiple hours, multiple times, if the Department of Corrections were not on board. And if they were on board for the purposes of last year, how come they're no longer on board? I think that's what we're struggling with.
Thank you, David.
That's fair.
Angela, go ahead.
Can I just ask, Jen Burrell is on, and I know Frank used to work in the commissioner's office at DPH. Jen, I don't know if you have just a comment on, you know, the amount of effort that had gone in on trying to make a solution work with those spaces.
Sure, thanks, Asya. And, you know, sitting here listening, I appreciate the frustration, and I wasn't part of some of those early meetings with Frank. And so, you know, can't sort of speak directly to comments made, but I can tell you that Frank was working every possible opportunity or angle with the city to try to be able to get that space and sort of buy in an agreement to get the vans onto the street. I cannot comment sort of the timing of when sort of the streets on the van and the DOC piece sort of did not connect in the way. I think what was probably happening, quite honestly, is that there's clearly lots of moving pieces to this project. And so what Frank was probably doing was trying to see all possible options and trying to make the pieces work. Again, understanding sort of the concerns and the frustrations and sort of what the long-term implications were. And so if it wasn't clear, and it sounds like it wasn't clear, or that it wasn't clear that it was exploration and trying to make this happen, you know, I do apologize for that. Our intent has never been to mislead or not be transparent. We completely understand that you do all need to live there during the build out and, quite honestly, upon completion in the long term. And so we've really tried to, I hope that's evident in at least the past, you know, 5 or 6 meetings between myself, Asya, Joe, Gordon, and Rachel, be as transparent as possible. If that didn't come across at the start, again, my apologies for that and appreciate the frustration. Unfortunately, I think this is sort of where we have to stand in keeping these vans in this proposed area. We don't have any options. I think you heard last time directly from DOC. We've tried to work with DOC as well. Is there any other way that we can make this happen in other locations, in different parts of the area near the Fuller building? And we just cannot get to where you would all like us to go.
Angela.
All right, so I guess while I've been waiting, I've a couple of different perspectives. So why are we meeting? So what happens is, what I hear is, we want to build trust and we want to do this, and then, but this is final. So why are we, where are you coming from? What's the point of this? Because you've already made it clear that you're gonna do what you want to do, whether we like it or not. So why are we talking? What's the purpose here? Because it's pretty frustrating to me that there is no trust here. We were told one thing, and now we're being told something else. And there's this little bit of green space. How big is, can you give me the dimensions of that little plot of green space that you just decided to add?
It's the replacement of the 3 parking spaces, so the size of 3 parking spaces of vans, and we can get the exact dimensions.
So it's just really frustrating. This is where we live. Like, this is where we live. This isn't, I don't know how you would feel if this happened at your house, but this is where we live. So right now, I used to look out of my window and see trees that blocked the backside of the dental school and part of the hospital, and there's nothing. It's all gone. And that's not happy to me. That doesn't make me feel good. But this attitude is just, yeah, we want to build trust, but what to what end? What are we doing? Why are we talking? Because you're going to do, what I hear is you're going to do what you want to do, whether we like it or not. So you're giving us a chance to vent, but it's going nowhere. So where's the trust? Tell me what the purpose here is.
Well, just to speak for my team, because I do think after our last meeting, we took back your feedback and took it incredibly seriously, have been trying to come up with any solution possible and have been able to shift. And again, I know the answer that folks want to hear at the end of the day is 0 spaces in the back. I do feel like we've been able to shift to a proposal in the right direction. And I think that's the purpose of these meetings, to have the discussions, to start to build the trust, to, what should that green space look like? I don't think either of anyone's going to get 100% what they want from this, but we want to build that and try to get to that place after we move on from this solution.
I mean, in short, honestly, Angela, the effort of this team, why we meeting is because we worked for the last 3 weeks to with all the interested parties, reduce the number of spaces and get some green space in there. I don't think there's anybody on the team that is like vested in personally in wanting a lot of vans out there and introduce. This is a project team that is working on a project that is, for the greater good of the overall community. And part of it includes, the build out of what's going to be there. And that's very difficult for the abutters. But why are we here? Because we're trying to find some way to make it better. I mean, and find some compromise. It's tough. I don't see any solution here. I mean, if we could put the vans on the street, if what was explored last year before I got on the project could be done, I think there's nobody that would object to that. But we're our client are the people that are going to be using this. This is the program. You have to. So we really do twist arms just to get the 3 spaces and get some green space. So we're trying to make that the best we can.
Marie?
Hi. Can I share my screen?
If you give me a second.
I'll stop sharing mine.
Yeah, you can now.
So I have some Google pictures of East Newton Street, and I have some pictures of the loading dock stuff. And what's amazing is that there is incredibly a lot of space and parking on East Newton Street. And you have never, you haven't really been forthright with us about actually who's going to be parking in the back, vans, maybe not, maybe SUVs, maybe not, who else, maybe CEOs, maybe whoever. But, this street, East Newton Street, if you look at it, on the left is Solomon Building.
Marie, we're not seeing your screen.
You're not sharing your screen.
You can't see it?
No, you do have the ability to share your screen, but you're not sharing your screen.
Okay. Okay, can you see that?
Nope. Yeah, yes, now we can see.
we go.
Thank you.
I have a lot of other pictures, but which one are you seeing?
We're seeing the dental building and the Fuller on the left.
That's around the green. I did a little video today. I've had to share a screen. I guess I screwed it up. But so this street is has an incredibly amount of potential to house those vans. And it just doesn't make sense to me that you have to put these big long vans in our backyard that it's going to be making a lot of noise and a lot of pollution. And this street has 43, 45, whatever parking spaces. And even in just right in front of the East Newton Pavilion, there's a big long space for the bus stop that could be moved forward, you know? So what other vans are you, what other, you know, state vehicles are you planning to be on East Newton Street? And it just makes so much sense that the state owns half this block. Have the state vehicles on this block, make it a state plaza, you know, have your state vehicles on this block and not on our backyards. It just makes so much sense. And I don't see why you guys don't get it unless you're not telling us the truth about what's really happening on that street. Solomon Building's on the left, Shattuck's on the right. Have your vehicles on that street, not in our backyards. Right, and so then I have another picture. I'm not sure, let's see if I can share it. I'm not sure how to do it, but I'm looking at the loading dock and another picture. And then with this loading dock on the new Pavilion, you're gonna have all these trucks coming in and out, and where your proposed vans are planning to park, that's where all the second, third, fourth vans are waiting to go into that waiting dock. So where are all those trucks? So you have a big commercial truck doing laundry. It's like a 60-footer, whatever van, whatever, 40, whatever it is. And so there are going to be all these other trucks backing up. Where are they going to be? Where are they going to be? They're going to be blocking our entrance or exit to get out of the alley. Where are they going to be? They're already like so imposing.
Where are the trucks going to be?
Yeah, it's like crazy. You guys have not thought this through. And so, and I've said this before, is
Can
that
anyone speak to that question, Marie?
crazy. Who, Rin? Tell me. How is that gonna happen? Where are those other trucks lining up when the truck is backing up into the loading dock? Where are all the other Staples, you know, all the hospital trucks, vendor trucks? There's a litany of them all day long. Where are they gonna be? They can't be in that space anymore. They're gonna be on Albany Street. And then you have Albany Street with the dental building, their slip. They back up. Even today when I was going to work, I go down Albany Street every day. I had to wait for the Staples or Amazon. I don't know what it was, but we all were backed up, and then the guy had to back up into the slip. So you have the slip of the dental building, you have the delivery, the ramp of Shattuck. Then you have these frigging vans coming out of the street. Then you have the Solomon Building slip. It's like, what are you guys? You designers are making me crazy. It doesn't make sense. You're using the public alleyway, the public streets to do your delivery crap, to do your stuff. It doesn't make sense. We're taxpayers and you're taking advantage of us. So there.
Can someone speak to Marie's concern around the trucks and the loading dock?
I think we can take that back of how that fits into our operational plan.
And Marie, your concern around that is what? That the trucks that are there now will not have.
Yeah, it doesn't, these guys don't live here. We see it every day. Cindy's been here for 40 years. I've been here for 20 years. We see the way this happens. So what they're doing is, people are, these trucks, there are a number of trucks, and then, this is gonna, not recently, but it's gonna be busy now. It's busy now. It's busier now, right? So we have this backup of all these used trucks on Albany Street. And so when the Shattuck opens, it's gonna be even more major. And so that space where those vans are gonna be, that's where people were like waiting to get into the loading dock until the other big trucks left. Where are they gonna be now?
Yep, so Marie will take that back. That's definitely an operational planning issue, so we will take that back.
David, I see you. Let me ask a factual question though, Asia, before that just
Sure.
follows up on what Marie just said and Cinda and other people. So, I mean, obviously none of us on the resident side find the Department of Corrections stated reasons for why parking on the street for their vehicles, vans or SUVs is not suitable, right? And we don't find their arguments persuasive. But having said that, whether they're persuasive or not, who on the state side is the decider as to where their spaces ultimately go? Is that the Department of Corrections has unilateral say over where those spaces must be, and DCAM and DPH simply have to accede to what the Department of Corrections desires, or is the ultimate decider DPH or somebody within Executive Office of Health and Human Services or a DCAM? Who's the decider?
Well, ultimately, this is a hospital operated by the Department of Public Health, which has multiple agencies, including DMH and DOC, that we all report within the Executive Office of Health and Human Services. And we have this leadership team that we come and present to you here. So it's a team decision with the leadership from each of our respective agencies. But if you're looking for, I'm assuming you're looking for a name here. So if you'd like it, we can bring that back as well.
Okay, yeah, I would like a name, but I would also, but I'm also interested in the structure, because I mean, it seems like it's just it just seems like a crucial question.
Yeah, so this is a DPH hospital with multiple agencies within the hospital that all report up to the Executive Office of Health and Human Services, if that helps you with the structure of our agency.
So somewhere in the Executive Office of Health and Human Services chain of command is where the decision ultimately rests.
Well, it really rests in why don't we get back to you, but this is a DPH hospital. Jen, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit to kind of our typical operations for our hospitals.
Sure. So as Asia just said, it is a DPH hospital. And so sort of the day-to-day running of the facility, once it's up and running, will fall to the department, obviously in collaboration with DMH and DOC. I think, David, what you're asking is sort of who is the final decision maker on some of these issues. And presumably you're looking for somebody to have that conversation with or escalate to. Happy, Commissioner Margaret Cook is the commissioner of DPH. I will put her correct spelling of name in the chat. Anything you send to her, she will, flag for me and Asia and ultimately to the Secretary of Health and Human Services, which is what the Department of Public Health falls under.
Okay. Thank you. David.
Absolutely.
David, do you want to speak?
Sorry, I was just trying to turn my mic on and my camera on. I appreciate what this group has done to at least relook at the options behind for parking and the alternatives for parking. The challenge that I have with this sort of reasoning is this clearly, and I think David was sort of getting at it, this clearly is just being driven by the Department of Corrections. It's a disciplinary group that's making decisions for this hospital, but this is solely being driven by Department of Corrections. And I find it really hard to believe, just working in the medical field and taking care of patients, prisoners who have come from the Department of Corrections and various facilities. Those hospitals that I've worked in, there's not dedicated parking, on-site parking for Department of Corrections. They have to accommodate and find parking just like anybody else being transported. So this notion that there's a requirement for dedicated parking, I find just unacceptable. I find it just a means to an end for getting these spaces back there. I really appreciated Cinda going through and outlining what coincides with what we all believe, that parking can be made available. This is a state-run process it's a state-run hospital. The state is dictating what they want to do here and is forcing this down our throats. Why can't the state dictate and force what they want to do on the street and say, we need this parking, and take the parking away? The state and city can work together and do whatever they want. This is the way the government, the way the state can work. And clearly it's the way that they're operating here with the abutters. So I find it, I appreciate the 3 spaces. It's better than nothing, but I also find the reasoning for why we can't go even further or find alternative means, I find it just unacceptable and untruthful, because clearly the state can do whatever it wants. It's doing it with the abutters, and it doesn't want to do the same with the city and take those spots in the front. And this notion that DOC needs to be on site right in front of the hospital is literally on site. I think they're still thinking that they're in Franklin Park, or where the current Shattuck is. We need to readjust their frame, because it's a new piece of property. It's a new space. It's an urban space now, and they need to adjust and find a way to work with the abutters. Because like I said to Joe when I spoke to him, the closing off of the alleyway is a temporary inconvenience for the abutters. It's a long temporary inconvenience, but it's temporary. These parking spaces are permanent. There's not going to be a change in mind and then they're going to go back to green space. So this is why we're so adamant about this. I agree with what David said. I feel like we need to escalate and talk to whoever's in the chain of command, because this can't be dictated by Department of Corrections. This can't be. And so I appreciate you sharing that name with us. And I also appreciate going back and talking to whoever that person is and saying, hey, we're pushing this on the backside. Why can't we push this on the front side and make this work? Because the state can do whatever it wants, and everyone on this call knows that.
Anything else, David?
No, that's the point I just want to make. Like I said, I appreciate the olive branch. It feels like a very small branch. And I know this group has tried hard to think about this, but I think the obstruction that's being put up by DOC needs to be dealt with by the other parties on the call. You guys have the power to do this. You can make decisions. You can work with the state leadership to decide wherever you want to put this parking. And the sort of dying on this hill and really impacting the abutters just doesn't make sense to me. It just shows a lack of understanding of where this new facility is, and the fact that we're not in a park anymore. You're in someone's backyard as well. I know it's your backyard, but it's also someone else's backyard. And so we're trying to be respectful and cooperative and helpful in terms of this transition. It's a big transition. And I think the state needs to really look at what they were initially proposing and understand that those are still viable options despite what's being said here tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting me talk.
No, thank you, David. And I think that's important feedback. I do want to say, just from my perspective and our team's perspective, when we're talking about the DOC, they're a part of our project and our leadership team, and we take their safety protocols incredibly seriously and how they affect the safe operations of the hospital and the protocol there. And I have the feedback that, the abutters don't agree with those safety protocols from DOC. So I have that. But, I don't want the framing of
But
like
Asya,
DOC is dictating this. They're a part of this
Asya,
planning of the safe
safety,
operations of the hospital. Go ahead, David.
the safety issues, I totally agree. I don't
Right.
want there to be unsafe situations because this is adjacent to the world that we're all living.
Right.
The issue is though, is like the safety issues being addressed in that initial pull-off where there's I forget the name of what it's called, but that sort of caged
Right.
area where the patients are, where
Valley Court. Yep.
I'm sorry, I don't know the name of it. It sounds
That's
bad
okay.
the way I described
Very
it.
technical.
But that area is being modified. It's
Right.
definitely also impacting. That used to be a cut through that you could cut through from East Brookline to East Newton from East Brook. So that's impacting the abutters, but we understand that impact. That's a safety issue. The
Right.
parking of an empty van that has no prisoners in it in an alleyway that is less of a risk for vandalism and sort of the things that Department of Corrections was citing makes absolutely no sense. There's not a safety
Right.
issue there. It's actually more safe, I believe, on the front part where it's more well lit, where it's in front of the hospital, where there's probably security standing out there, or at least in the front door, where it's less likely of an issue. So these arguments are just being made to push the narrative of getting those spaces and are not based in reality and fact.
Right.
Thank you.
The only safety issue I heard the Department of Corrections cite for not being on East Newton Street was that their vans might get keyed. None of us have argued against the only real safety issue, which is the Sally Port. Does anyone else want to speak to this issue? I don't see anybody's hand raised. Oh, Angela, I see yours up again. Go ahead.
A question. As I look outside, so right now there's actually parking on both sides of the ramp here out there. What's going to happen to that? So I see trucks. I actually counted 14 trucks parked on either side of the loading dock. What's going to happen to that space? Why can't that space be used?
So currently, Angela, that this is a leased property, and there are some rights that BMC still has between BMC and BU to that space in front of the Naval Blood Bank.
Mhm.
So we can't use that at this point in time to park vans because it's controlled. There's some interests in that are held by the BU and BMC that have that Naval Blood Bank for future considerations.
Angela, you're speaking about the loading dock itself, though.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the blood bank. They're like these trucks are parked out here. They're lined up. They're the same size as these vans, and they have plenty of space on either side of the loading dock. So that's the space I'm talking about. Right behind the dental school. Right now I'm looking at it, it's paved. I see construction trucks, and I counted about a dozen trucks on either side of the loading dock. So what is that space? Why can't you use that space?
I think you can see here that the space is all allocated. The loading dock is for trucks to pass each other up and down the ramp. And on the other side is a utility yard for the infrastructure for the facility. So the space, as you know, it's an urban campus. It's very tight, and we've done our best to try to fit all the program that the customers that we need to deliver this building require, and it's complicated, as you've all noticed.
Okay, so the space I'm talking about here is you're pointing behind the dental school in that green space there. Is that so? That's not green right now, so that's going to be dug up and made green.
Are you talking about the
That's
space?
dug up tomorrow. If you look at there's a site that tells you what's happening. It's going to be dug up this week, and they're doing mechanicals. That space is all mechanical. There's nothing. Those trucks will not be there in the future. Correct, Rin?
I couldn't quite hear what your question or statement.
What Angela is saying is that there's mechanicals. When I was looking at the next couple of weeks plan for the project, is that space, that green space in front of the dental building that we all look out at is going to be dug up and then start doing the mechanicals there. So
Yes, we're maintaining the pathway, right? So you will still have the ability, the walkway will still be there. The green space is reduced because there's utilities have to be there that are currently below grade that are going to be underwater in the future. So anything that gets built today needs to be brought up to much higher standards because of the future of global warming. Unfortunately, that you can't have power and equipment that's going to be below the future floodplain. So that's driven some of these utilities that are in the basement below grade today have to be above grade because of the future code requirements. Driven by, unfortunately, global warming. But we made sure to work that very diligently to maintain that walkway so you can still walk through along the loading dock in between the hospital and the BU Dental School. So that pathway that's there, that was there previously, is being maintained and will be there when we're finished.
oh, good.
Anyone else want to make a comment or have a question before we move off this? I'll just say one final thing, and I think Asi, I don't know whether you're still on or you've now dropped off.
I'm still here.
Okay, I was just going to say that you and I talked about somebody at your end providing us with information about the typical number of van or SUV movements per day.
Yeah, so just before I jump off, and I'm so sorry that I have to hop off everyone, but we have data on what happens currently at the Shattuck. Obviously, it's a completely different environment and urban setting, but we will certainly take this request back of trying to determine a pattern, a traffic pattern of the frequency that could be expected in the new operations of this facility. So we will work on that and come back to this group, if not the next time we meet, in one of our very soon future meetings.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Our team is staying on and Joe will help to moderate. Okay. Take care.
Before we move on to the next slide or topic, I just wanted to acknowledge that Amanda from Frank Baker's office is here. I see her, and Kim, our South End liaison with the mayor's office. So thank you both for being here.
So, Jason, do you guys want to say a word for after the thanks at all before we get started and move back to Jason? Okay, well, Frank just acknowledged, some elected public officials and staff. So if you want to have an opportunity to talk as we move along, please just raise your hand. Is Jason on with us tonight?
I am here. Joe.
Jason, you want to talk to the construction, tell people what's been going on, what they've seen in the last few weeks, what they can expect to see as it moves toward the alley closure?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the slide's the same slide, but we added a couple of little things, and I hate reading from them, but I'll elaborate on some of the stuff that we've done in addition to this. But just as a reminder, we're very diligent about not starting before 7 a.m. A couple of people made a comment on the website, which it's great that it's being used, and we get an email almost immediately that there was some activity or a lot of noise going on much earlier than 7. I think I remember seeing the email might have said like 4 or 5 a.m. or whatever it was, but I want to guarantee everybody that was not us. We looked in to see if there were any other permits being pulled in the area, and we didn't find any, but a couple people on my team spent a lot of time trying to find out what it was so we can kind of address it. And we couldn't find anything, but we are not starting before 7. And we were there a couple of days really early, and we heard a couple of large bangs, and I couldn't even identify where it was from once being in the building. But I just want to give everybody assurances that that's our steadfast rule, and we will hold to it throughout the entire duration of the project. And if you hear something, you can still, if it comes up, send an email on that, and I'd be happy to look into it, because I am still curious as to what that was, but like I said, it was not anything from the project that we're working on now. I mentioned last time that we're going to post no idling signs. I had those made up, and they are posted now in anticipation, or even what we're doing right now to make sure that people do, we don't have to keep telling them, and they can read the signs and obey them. And our group of contractors is really good. They're good partners with us, and we've drilled it in the morning during morning briefings and how important that is, and we remind them quite often of it. Another thing too is, like I said, I know a few people are going onto the website because they've sent in a couple of questions or concerns, but the website is being updated. We do put 2-week look aheads up there every week to project out, as well as some photos. I'm actually looking at it right now, and I think I need to update some of the photos from last week. But it's kind of cool if somebody wants to see what's going on, and if you're interested, some interesting photos in there, and we'll try to keep them as current as possible. But we are being also very diligent about making sure that we put some bullet points on what you might expect to hear or see happening. And it's actually going to be around the whole perimeter, because if other people happen to look at it, like the neighbors, meaning BU Dental, they'd be interested in what's happening along their alleyway. So with that being said, a couple of the other things that are happened since our last meeting, kind of taking in all the feedback that we got. And I know I promised everybody that we can't necessarily stop everything we're doing, but I challenged myself and my team to do any small steps we can to make the whole better, maybe at the end. So just some of the little things that happened since we last met. I know we had a large machine in the back corner that was demoing the loading dock, which was big and intrusive, but it was the only machine that could really get out the old foundations that were pretty deep and attached to the building. That work is now done, and we're past it. That's probably the heaviest demo we're going to do back there, outside of drilling in to put the facade on and things like that. So what we did do is, that machine was originally intended to stay there to do some of the other excavating and grading. I had it pulled out, and we had a much smaller machine brought in. And it's actually, I think it's still parked there. I walked by it this morning. I didn't look at it when I left this evening, but so a little small step there. I challenged our site contractor to, if they had anything available that I would like to see, that the remaining work did not need to be done with a piece of equipment of that size. I know it was convenient. It might be convenient to leave it there, but it kind of showed me that they do get it and they're trying. So we still need a machine to do the work. However, we made a little change with that. We're also really trying to be a little bit more proactive and mindful of our loadouts. So a couple of things on that, and I don't want to bore everybody, but I think it's important. We will always need to load out through the area that you see right now on the back corner near that loading dock. That has to remain, unfortunately, for a large portion of the project. However, once again, I went back to our demo contractor and mechanical contractor, and we kind of split the building down the middle in some of those main floors. And I mentioned at the last meeting that we were looking into procuring a loading platform that we could put in the front of the building on East Newton in one of the corners. That's actually being delivered. We finalized the contract, and it's being delivered, and it's going to be a while to set it up, a week or so, next Monday. So that's some good news. It's good news for me personally and my team, because it gives me 2 big loading and unloading points. And I really want to leave that there as long as I possibly can. It doesn't mean that the loadout that you see in the back loading dock area is going to go away, because it's not, but it should be less frequent for right now. In fact, I have a lot of debris stacking up in the building along the front elevation, which is causing a whole nother issue. But if I can get that loading platform installed, like I think it's going to happen in about a week, I'll be able to pull that stuff up from that side. So another little small step to the big picture, and I hope that helps. I think it'll be good. We are going to have a loadout next week from the loading dock area, which you saw before, but there will be hopefully a little less frequent for this phase of the project. As we go into other phases that could change, but when those phases happen, once again, my intent is to go back to my team, challenge them with some creative ways, like what can we do? Can more stuff come out the elevator? Can we cut it up into smaller pieces, even if it takes a little bit more time? So we're always gonna do that. And I know my entire team from Gilbane and even our subs, they're fantastic. They listen, they get it. So we're trying to do that. So hopefully that's a big piece of it. And I'm not gonna be able to solve it all, but as we go, and I do welcome the feedback, I'm gonna listen to everything, and we're gonna try to make a lot of little small steps as we go. And maybe in the end, they'll pay off. But just one other thing too on the machinery. Once we brought the other machine in, I was reminded quite a few times that the machine also has to be obviously the right machine to do the job safely. So sometimes if pipe is heavy and you're putting it in the ground, you can't do it with this little tiny like Tonka toy that we have in the back right now. It has to be a little bit more stable, but that doesn't have to be for every case. So we're evaluating it and we're looking at it, pretty hard. So hopefully, I mean, that's really all I have. The rest of the stuff is ongoing, and I don't want to repeat myself from what I said in the other meetings because it's kind of all in the same. But those are some of the updates that I have from last time we met. And I encourage everybody to look at the website. The look ahead is updated every week, and it's pretty current. It's a little fluid because some stuff, like in construction all the time, things tend to change. And there are concealed conditions that you run into, and you might have to push something off a little bit, but you really will get the gist of the flow of the construction, at least on the outside of the building. So that's all I got, Joe. If that
Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
Remind us of what the website is. Where the address is.
It's on the last slide here.
Okay.
So
yeah, it's on there.
Can you go to the last slide? And Marie, go ahead.
There it is. Mass.gov Shattuck.
Perfect. Marie,
Sorry.
I'll put it in the chat as well, David.
thanks.
So Jason, I did look at that website today. Can you explain what's going to be happening right there in back of us? It looked like there's going to be a lot of activity.
Like in that back corner where it's
Aside from the like dental building where the mechanicals are going to be, it looks like, are you digging that up this week?
No, we're not. There's vehicles over near that little guard shack because we were doing some testing and they were coming in and out. So we allowed them to park there. But in general, they shouldn't be always parking there. We are eventually.
Sorry, it's not, can you not hear me? It's not about parking. It's about, are you digging that area up?
We're digging where those utility yards are going to be. Not now, but we will be.
Oh,
We will be.
I guess I misread them.
Yeah, no, we're going to be doing that. There's been a few little tweaks in the design along the alleyway between BU Dental and the Shattuck building with some utilities. And we're wrapping that up. And then that's going to kind of turn the corner into that new utility yard that you're mentioning right at the adjacent wall to BU Dental.
Okay, so it's between the BU.
Yeah, between the loading dock ramp and BU Dental, that wall, there's going to be 3 big pads in that area, concrete pads to house three items in that area. And then it's drainage. There's a lot of drainage that's happening at the top of the loading dock. And we just got to get past a couple little hurdles with some concealed conditions that we uncovered and kind of rerouting in that area. But once the work starts, I will say this, it's going to go on in that section for quite a little bit. There is a lot of work with the switch yard that's being put there and the underground lines that go back into the building. But it's confined to that area, so we have to manage that pretty tightly. There's only so much equipment you can fit at once, but it'll be done in that location.
Are you reworking that loading dock at all? Or
No, we're not. The loading dock is going to remain there. There's a couple of adjustments we need to make at the base of it, right down at the bottom, but that's really kind of about it. There's we're probably going to clean it and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're going to freshen it up at the end of it.
Thank you.
You're
Cinda?
welcome.
Cinda?
Hi, Jason. I just want to compliment you and Gilbane and Brooke as well. I think it's just been fantastic in terms of how I think there's been a great deal of sensitivity displayed by Gilbane, and I'm sure you had a lot, and Brooke had a lot to do with it. Today, I'll give you an example, and it was a great experience, even though it dealt around construction. I did hear the backup going down the alley, and I said, well, I'm going to just go up and see what's going on. And as it passed in front of my house, it was a huge tractor trailer truck carrying a long crane. And what surprised me, whoever was managing that down the alley, that truck was moving so slowly. And as a result of that, I did not feel any vibration in my house with the movement of that truck as it moved past my house. And I just want to thank you for that. And
I'm glad. I wasn't sure, and I don't want to take full credit for that because that's our steel contractor, and I did prep him. That's his first delivery that he had, and he wanted to do it in another spot, and we went to the back of the building to load in that corner. I said, it's already disturbed. Go all the way to the back, go very slow. And when I got there in the morning, I took a couple of pictures, and the guy gave me the thumbs up on the truck for what it's worth. And I was like, well, picked a hell of a day for an abutters meeting. I'll find out if it worked or not. But I'm glad. It was a steel delivery that we brought to the roof to fix we had to do some patching from underneath. And yeah, it was really big, I know. And when I saw the mast on it as I was making the corner walking in, I was just crossed my fingers. And some things will work and some things won't, but I'm glad. And it's also good to remind me, and I'm going to make another note, that as much as I say no idling and all these other nice little things, but I think you made a good point about just going very slow could possibly make a big difference. So I'm going to mention that to the guys too, as one more reminder. But thank you for that feedback.
Anyone else have a question or a comment for Jason?
Most of you guys have my number, so if something comes up, you have Brooke, myself, we're there all the time, and my whole team's really good. So if you send something or you call us, and I've mentioned this to a couple of people I've spoke to before, and we don't get back to you right away. Sometimes we're in meetings, but I promise you that we will respond and get back to you very quickly. And I want to hold my word on that. So far, I think that's worked out, unless one of us is out or sick or something like that. But the website is working, and try to keep that updated. But thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Before we move on to what I think is the last item, which is the alternative parking, I just also wanted to acknowledge Corey from Rep Santiago's office, who I overlooked earlier. Thank you, Corey, for being here. So go ahead up with regard to the parking.
Thank you. So as you know, that scheduled for July 1st, the alley in behind the parking spaces will be closed for Jason to go in and do his construction. And his team, obviously, not doing it all himself. That being said, it has been suggested that this project would find alternative parking at the Smith Garage. The team sent out registered letters to everyone we had on the list. That I'm going to use a round number here. I'm not specific about 24 abutters. We thought were parking actively in and using the alleyway as the access point to the parking on their property. And so we've gotten some back, and we've gotten some executed where people have said, yep, we're going to move over there. We've also gotten some registered letters returned. Maybe they didn't get picked up. So the bottom line is we really want to reach out any way we can, work through this organization. We're obviously going to probably put some signs out there that will alert people. I don't know if we can fit them out there, Jason. That's another conversation, but just alerting people to the fact that closure is coming. If you're parking here, please contact us so we can make arrangements. We're also going to flyer and go door to door through each of the buildings just to make sure we reach everyone. So if you have a neighbor who parks out there and they haven't heard anything, please have them, reach out to me or Meg or anybody on the team, and we will, talk to them, meet with them, and take them through what the proposed process is. The objective is by July 1st that we'll have agreements and relocation agreements for all that parking. And it is an inconvenience. There's no doubt about it, but it is temporary. And when it's done, hopefully it'll be better and safer, and there'll be longer term benefits. We'll see how that can work out. But anyway, that's the alternative parking. And I just want to go on the record for Cinda. Cinda, I'll come out, and I don't know if you drink coffee. I don't, but I'll come out and have a coffee with you and talk to you and stuff. And I understand I wasn't trying to shut you down. I was just trying to give you back the floor, but I used the wrong words by saying wrap up. I should have said continue. So my apologies.
Thank you.
And I've put my email in the chat as well. If you think that you were supposed to get a letter and you haven't yet, please reach out to me. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on that, because we do communications on a lot of different projects, and this type of arrangement can be a challenge. So last time we asked, did anybody concerned about the parking before we wrapped up the meeting? And there was like nobody that was saying, obviously we understand the concern about the displacement and the how that's a problem, but there wasn't a lot of discussion on the parking. And I feel like that needs to be elevated. Does anybody on the call in the position where they've gotten a letter and they're working, can we work with them? Or they know abutters that park there every day, but they don't know any information you guys can give us?
Allison, I know that you had put some information you had asked a question in the beginning in the chat, and I just wanted to make sure we connected. I have.
Hi, yes. So I've not received any letters, and I have tenants who park in the back of the building. And I'm
Okay,
concerned about it because my tenants are not going to have parking, and I don't know where their parking is going to be. And, we get rent for that. And I don't want to lose, 6 months or a year of rent for
No,
parking.
we understand. So if we can,
You have 2 parking spaces.
I have 2 parking spots, and yeah, we have 2 parking spots, and we have not, I've not received any.
so you did not
Correspondence
receive one of
from
the
you.
registered letters, right? So
I've
then
not
we-
received any registered letter.
Would
Can
it be
you-
okay? Oh, go ahead, Nick.
I was gonna say, if you're not comfortable telling me on this call, just so I can check with my list, what units you own, if you want to shoot me an email, or we can talk.
Sure, I'll shoot you
offline.
an email with the 2 units that we own.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Because we do have a list. We're just going off of what we could find.
Mhm. I'm happy to do that, but
Thank you.
Allison,
but-
if any of your neighbors or, any of
we're
you on the
trying to
call-
re-rent the parking because it's going to be available, and I need to know where they're going to be parking.
I will answer you. I will check as soon as you get me the information. I will get information to you.
But
Thank
the answer to Allison's question as to where they would be parking is the Smith. Is that not true?
Yes.
That
Yes.
much you know. Okay. Can you, Joe or Meg, can you just speak to the mechanics of what people should expect? Are you going to be providing them with a key card so that they can get access? Is there anything that people need to do other than talk to you? I mean, is it
To be honest, we haven't gotten to the logistics point. We're trying to essentially agree on terms now, David. As far as, this is the location, we're going to make it available for as long as you're displaced, whatever that period of time is. We'll have to talk to Smith's Garage, but we can certainly follow up with an advisory with more detail on that. Because I'm sure.
Joe,
I don't know whether
I
they-
think
Joe, if I
Gordon's
could
trying to
jump
raise
in.
his hand.
Jason, go ahead.
I
Yeah,
think Gordon, you're muted. That's the problem. You're muted.
But I think Jason parks there, so maybe he can tell us a little bit.
I can
Wait.
take this one. I can take this one.
okay, Gordon.
Yeah, we just went over and toured the facility last week went over there with Francis. And we met with the management team. So for the pedestrian door, you get like a key card so that you can get in and out of the door into the garage when you're walking there. And to get in and out of the garage with your vehicle, there's 2 different methods. If you happen to have a fast lane pass, they use the fast lane just to open and close the barrier. It's not for payment. It's just, they have a method that they use the fast lane, so you don't have to have another device on your visor or on your windshield. If you don't have a fast lane, then they will give you another transponder type device that will open and close the gate automatically when you pull into the facility and when you leave. So we're working through getting a statement of operation so we can share that with you in writing. But that was the follow-up that we went and visited the site about a week ago, and it's in really good shape. So I think you'll be very happy with the condition, and there is staff there 24/7. So if there's any needs to speak to someone, or if your pass doesn't work, there's always somebody there to let you into the door or to help you with any questions. So that's a very positive piece of why we picked this location. we think they'll provide you the service that you will want.
I will say this, Gordon, that's right. And my whole team, we have like 7 spaces in there now, maybe 8, but I was a little reluctant on giving them my Easy Pass number, but it's working great. And a couple of my team members actually have, it's a little tan disc, or not disc, but plate that you put on your windshield, and it's supposed to act the same way. They're a little bit more temperamental. Some people have had to take them off. So if you have an Easy Pass, it works good. And nothing's ever going on my bill. We pay it separately. It's just they use it for that mechanism. And I think I had, Gordon, I think I had my cost go directly to your credit card. So maybe that's why I'm not seeing it, but it's working fine. But I just wanted to say that if somebody is concerned about the Easy Pass, my whole team kind of laughed at me. They said, "Oh, Jay's never going to allow give him his pass," but it's working great. And there is a guard. I've gotten not stuck, but a couple of times I had to back up like 3 feet and come back. And as soon as I went to do that, the guy got out of the little shack inside, and like the gate opened, and he gave me a wave, like it's all set. But it's clean. It's probably the nicest parking garage we've parked in. And I found it from somebody on this meeting way back when I couldn't find parking, and somebody mentioned, I had no idea it was even there. So whoever it was, thank you. So
We have electrical.
I mentioned it, so
there you
I'll
go.
have to go collect my finder's fee from Leggett McCall.
Yeah.
Did I tell you I'm getting 10%?
Well, we all like it. And I just wanted to say that about the Easy Pass. If anybody is reluctant, it works great. And it's not a problem. There's something in it that makes just click. So
when will residents know when will you have final details for people?
So we're gonna, so as we get these people start returning the forms, we'll have the basically a 1-pager from the Smith Management Group, basically saying in words what we just said verbally. So that should, we would like to get that all settled in early to mid-June, so there's no last minute questions. If anyone want to walk over there and talk to the people on their own, they'll be able to do that as well. David.
Okay, and so people who are desirous of and eligible for this parking, what do they need to do to obtain it? What are the ways what do they need to do?
So what we did was because we wanted, we need to deal with the owners to make sure that the owners, especially if they're renting out the spaces, that we understand who the key contacts are. That's why we sent out registered letters to all based on the I believe it was the tax records, Rachel, correct?
Yes, that was the case.
Yes, sorry, I was
Yeah.
muted.
So there seems to be a few gaps in that information, which might be why some of the folks haven't received that. So that's why we're going to Plan B, which is to ask people at this meeting. And I think we're going to try to go and put some signs up so that anyone that hasn't been contacted already should have been. So we'll put some contact information out there in case people aren't participating in these meetings, David, so they can reach out to us and let us know that they are the owner. And if they use those parking spaces on their own, or if they're renting them, we can then make sure we provide the information and take care of them.
And can I suggest you do that ASAP, like in the next week or so?
Yeah, so the letters went out and the sign should be going out shortly. We just have to print something up and get them out there.
Okay.
The letters that we did send letters out to all of the residents that we had. I think Joe said it was about 24. I did get we sent it registered mail, so we get the little slip back when people have picked it up. I think we got 4 or 5 of those back, and we've only received 2 agreements so far, or any conversation about them. I'm just speaking with a couple of abutters who didn't realize what the registered mail was for. So that was another, but it was just word of mouth. Hey, my neighbor got one and we didn't. Turns out they did, and they just hadn't picked up the slip yet.
Right.
So it could be that you weren't on our list, but we are here to help and try to figure out what we can do.
And Meg, I'll just add to that. Plus, often, you're looking at sometimes there's LLCs, limited partnerships that own buildings. There's other different. So the effort here was to reach out to the owners as opposed to the renters. At this point, as you said, David, time is of the essence. We're going to be making every effort between a sign and flyers. That'll happen next week. And we'll try and really drill down to get to know who's driving each of these cars. And if we end up talking to a renter, well, then we'll go through that renter to get to their owner. to get deeper into
Let
it.
me ask you, I'm sure this is in the letters, but given that everybody's not getting a letter and you haven't fired yet, who's the point of contact for somebody who's an owner who's desiring this? Who do they reach out to?
Little
Meg?
old me.
Yeah, anybody on the team will relay to, but Meg is doing the database right now and will be overseeing, this effort.
I've put my information in the chat.
Yeah, can you shoot it to me afterward, Meg?
Of course.
Thank you.
And
Any
if
other
you go to any of the
any other
project
questions?
websites and just use the emails, that and say, hey, I've got a parking issue. It'll come right to us and we'll follow up that way too.
Anyone else have a question or a comment about this or anything else before we adjourn? Last call. I don't see anyone, so I think we're all set and we're finishing at 7:28, which is 2 minutes ahead of schedule. So I guess that's a record. So with that, I'll say good night and see you next month. Is that next month?
Yes, well, I believe there's going to be a more general DPH meeting early
Yeah,
next month.
Yeah, that's on a separate track, but
So with this group, certainly we'll need to follow up and resolve some of these issues. So I'd assume it would be about a month.
okay.
But we appreciate your hosting us, David, and appreciate everybody's, heartfelt concerns. And we know you live there and it's a big change coming. So we're trying to navigate those waters, but thank you.
Yes, they just want to make sure that you guys are addressing our issues and that you're going to be following through on it, and let us know, please.
Yes, we will. I think we're meeting tomorrow. So we will go right back to the heart of it and try and figure how we get there.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Aye.
Everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Aye.
Yep.